What's up guys, my name is Joe and this is another Black Ops 2 video, as you can probably see. I just wanted to make a slightly more positive video than my previous one, just because I was bitching a bit about FPS games and Call of Duty, and although I enjoy bitching now and again, I tend to sort of stay on the side of what would I like to see rather than what needs to stop. So, as you're all aware, Call of Duty Ghosts is coming out at the end of this year, and at the time of recording this, we have absolutely no idea what it's going to be like. Now, it's going to be like all the other Call of Duties so far. We know this. It has to be, because otherwise they just wouldn't do very well. They know that they wouldn't do very well, and they need to keep it reasonably close to the formula. But what they definitely need to do is they need to get a lot of their players back, because they have lost players. People have stopped buying the game. A lot of people have stopped buying the game. I mean, Black Ops 1 is still the best-selling single game of all time. I don't count World of Warcraft because subscriptions are kind of cheating. So Black Ops 1 is still the best-selling game of all time. Which means that, you know, they haven't been rising in sales, and they've in fact been falling in sales since then. So they really need to entice people back to the franchise. Now, they are going to use a new engine. Activision have made a new engine. I presume they've made a new engine specifically for Call of Duty. And now, I suspect one massive push will be for graphics, because the sort of bro kind of market for Call of Duty games is less into, you know, the intricacies of story and, you know, really precise game mechanics, and more into explosions and things looking nice. So as long as they keep the fast-paced, explosion-filled gameplay and up the graphics, you know, on par with all the other next-gen titles coming out, then people should be happy with that game. But the main thing that I'm interested in is how are they going to keep this smooth, slick feeling of Call of Duty on a new engine? And that was the main problem. That was why they haven't upgraded the engine to this day. It's nothing to do with them not having time, because Activision have more money than God, and, you know, they could have just allocated a specific team to develop a new Call of Duty engine, but they decided not to for whatever reason, meaning that we've been stuck with the Quake 3 derivative engine since Call of Duty 2, but I could be wrong. It might even be since Call of Duty 1, or it might be since Call of Duty 4. But I know that I know for a fact that Call of Duty 4 to Black Ops 2 have all been on an engine that was originally based on the Quake 3 engine. So, what do I mean by the sort of silky smooth gameplay that you get in Call of Duty? Well, one massive factor is, of course, 60 frames a second, and you'll notice, everybody notices, the fact that Call of Duty just plays a lot faster and a lot nicer than a lot of other games, including like Battlefield and things like that, especially on console, because it manages to run at 60 frames a second. Now, if you play Call of Duty on PC, where you're definitely going to be getting 60 frames a second, even if you cap it at 60 frames a second and then play a game like Battlefield at 60 frames a second, that is not the only thing that determines how smooth the game feels. The actual game engine is it's built in such a way that the actual movement that you have is quite precise for a modern military shooter. If you play a game like Battlefield, it tends to be a little bit floaty in that, you know, if you change direction, it is not instant. You know, you have weight. Your character has a bit of weight, which is good for a game like Battlefield, where you want it to feel a little bit more authentic, and you want the gameplay to be a little bit slower, a little bit more tactical. But in a game like Call of Duty, where, you know, you'll be doing what I'm doing in this game, which is running around with a shotgun on one of the biggest maps on the game, you want it to be precise, you want it to be immediate, and you definitely want it to be fast-paced and smooth. So I think that's going to be their main challenge, is to maintain that silky smooth feeling. Because of course if they didn't keep that silky smooth feeling to the extent that they've got it in the current Call of Duty games, then it would undoubtedly damage the franchise, because at that point, why would you not play another shooter that does have better balance, or does have actually more interesting game mechanics? Like, I mean, let's face it, Battlefield on paper seems a lot more interesting than Call of Duty, but a lot of people much prefer Call of Duty to Battlefield, and in some ways I do. I mean, I'm a big Battlefield player, don't get me wrong, but I really do enjoy playing Call of Duty, just because it's more casual fun, and because of that smooth pick up and play, kind of easy to get into gameplay. Now, another thing that they definitely need to iterate upon, rather than necessarily keeping it as it is the hit detection in the game. So if you go back to a Call of Duty 4, which is kind of everybody's, they believe that is the perfect game, and Infinity Ward did nothing wrong with Call of Duty 4. Now, of course, Call of Duty 4 was not as balanced as everyone thinks it is, but the main thing for me is the game wasn't actually as good. The core game was nowhere near as good as people seem to think it is. The hit detection in that game, if you go back to it now, is much worse than Black Ops 2. Now, I suspect that is more of a netcode issue than an engine issue. So they're definitely going to have to keep the netcode more like a Black Ops 2 netcode than COD 4. However, I think that the earlier versions of the engine were actually more precise in terms of local hit detection. Because if you go to Modern Warfare 2, that is pretty much the peak of how accurate the game was and how precise the game was. And that's not just because all the guns were laser guns, which they were, I will admit. The ACR, a little bit overpowered. But, if you compare that with Modern Warfare 3 is nowhere near as precise. A mixture of netcode, and also I do believe that the engine was it was inferior. That version of the engine was inferior to the Modern Warfare 2 one. Whatever they changed, I don't know what it was, but something that they changed in that game just meant that it was a bit more lenient in some ways, and also a little bit less accurate in others. So I think in Call of Duty Ghosts, they are going to have to really concentrate on making it so that every single shot that you fire hits exactly where you were aiming. Exactly where the bullet was meant to travel. Both locally on your end, so what you see, so the bullet impacts on the wall that you've just shot past the guy that you were trying to hit, because you're a Call of Duty player and you're terrible, and all Call of Duty players are noobs. You see that bullet impact in the right place, which is more local engine side, but also a mixture of the engine and the network. When you're playing online, you need that shot to be registered as hitting the guy that you're aiming at, no matter what. And Black Ops 2 definitely does it a lot better than other games. I mean, if you get in a game on this with low ping, so on the 2 games that I've uploaded of Black Ops 2 on this channel, I think I was host on both of them. And if I wasn't host, I must have lived next door to the host, because I had practically perfect connection. I mean, it was still 50 ping, because for whatever reason Call of Duty connection is just not as good as other games. But it went pretty well connection wise, and that meant that all of my shots hit. That meant that everything went well, which is why this game, although towards the end it's getting a bit terrible, my performance. At the beginning I ended up going 25-0 at the beginning of the game, which I thought was a pretty decent game, which is why I uploaded this. So this is pretty much the end of the video. The game's coming towards an end. I think I can't even remember what the final score was. We won. I did pretty well. But I hope you enjoyed. If you want more gaming videos and stuff like that from me and Jay, please hit that subscribe button above. I do recommend going and checking out the episode 2 of our podcast. Episode 3 should be up in about a week's time, talking more about consoles. So if you have subscribed, hopefully, I will see you all next time.